All right. So my connection is trash tonight. I had some issues earlier with the uh, Rep Your Squad, and um, I'm having issues now. But the party must go on. This was too good of a game to just end the stream like that. So I guess the first half of what I had to say is going to be up there because I said some really good stuff. I don't want to have to say it again. And the other half of the breakdown is going to be here, and it's going to be you guys pretty much giving me your comments. So hopefully you guys were able to find me here on this stream. I'm trying to find out the damn camera over there. Okay, yeah, that's the camera. So I'm hoping that I think I got to scoot this way down. Yeah. So I'm hoping you guys can find me here and we can discuss this game because, like I said, it was too good of a game. I really would like to still see the comment section, which I really can't see it up here anywhere. But anyway, it was a hell of a game. Uh, uh, I want you guys to be able to call in. I don't know the number. Give me 1 second. All right. So this way, I should be able to see your comments and I should be able to give you the number. So, all right. So I'm in the chat right now and I will definitely, I'm going to put the number in the chat. So give me a second while I retrieve that number for you guys. And I'm going to just leave it in the comment section so you'll have it and you'll be able to call in. Hopefully we can hear you guys clearly and that will allow us to communicate because, as I mentioned, this was too good of a game and I know it's a lot to be said and I want you guys to be able to have your voices heard. So I am going to see. I'm going to copy this number and I'm going to place it into this chat so you guys have it. All right. It's a damn shame I don't know this number by heart. All right. So there it is. All right. So somebody said I was using the dual screen. I'm actually doing that. It's funny. I am using the dual screen. And I got it on a little thing though, so it's hard for me to navigate. But I am actually using the dual screen. It's crazy. It's actually coming in handy right now. So, all right, let's read some comments. The number is in the comment section. If you want to call in, feel free. Niners fan says Matthew Stafford was balling today, one of the most underrated QBs in the league. I think the problem with Stafford is he doesn't win enough. That's the biggest issue. If he won more games, if he won a play, I don't think he's even won a playoff game yet, and I think that's where the criticism for Stafford comes in. Um, Niners fan also says these losses for the Lions may end up costing them a playoff berth, looking at how tough their schedule is, and that's what I kind of went over. I was talking when the connection went out, but I was talking about they could easily be 5-0 right now. When you look at their schedule and the way that those games played out, week one, they had a commanding lead against Arizona. They dominated them and then allowed Arizona to rally back in the fourth quarter. Matthew Stafford had the team on the verge of converting a third down that would have essentially put the game on ice. Their offensive coordinator, Darren Bevel, decided they needed a timeout. It ended up costing them the game. They ultimately had to punt. Arizona tied the game up, went to overtime. They ended up tying that game. They should have won that football game. You see the game against Kansas right before the bye. A number of plays swung the game in the favor of the Chiefs, but none bigger than the 101-yard fumble return by Bashad Breeland. You got Kerryon Johnson stretching the football out literally inches away from the goal line It's knocked out of his hands. It's picked up by the Chiefs, run back for a touchdown, and that was really a huge momentous swing. But then, even then, you still take the lead, got a chance to win. 4th and 8, allow Patrick Mahomes to run for 10 yards and a first down. They ultimately go down the field and win the game. And so, I mean, this team, and then tonight, I mean, they could easily be 5-0, but instead they're 2-1, and that's a bitter pill to swallow. And like you said, if they miss the postseason, it'll be because of games like tonight as to why they weren't able to get it done. Niners fan says, why is it that the Lions always seem to catch the tough breaks? Yeah, I remember, and when you bring that up, I think about the no call in the playoff game versus the Cowboys. If they call that pass interference, Brandon Pettigrew got interfered with. I want to say it was Sean Lee, one of those linebackers. If they call it, the Lions are probably going to win that football game. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. And as I mentioned earlier, don't allow the officials to be in a position to impact the outcome of the game. Go win the game yourself, and they could have done that by, one, running the football more effectively against a Packers defense that had been susceptible to the run. 2, being a lot more aggressive in the red zone and scoring some touchdowns instead of settling for field goals. And 3, taking advantage of some turnovers and some opportunities that they had in this game, and they just failed to do it. And I think they paid for it in this game, unfortunately for them. Atlas says the game doesn't matter anymore. The officiating would be the point of discussion. It's unfortunately that's going to probably end up being the case. We'll remember this game for the hands to the face penalty, but it was actually a pretty good game. Ed said the refs got paid handsomely tonight, and that's the bad part, is that I actually thought the officiating crew did a really good job up until those 2 hands to the face penalties. I talked about them on the first portion of this, how they did a tremendous job tonight of really allowing the players to decide to play, the game on the field. And then, as I say that, they make 2 calls that absolutely turn this thing in the favor of the Green Bay Packers. Travis Blankenship says, refs with the clutch game-winning drive. Thank you for the super chat. Absolutely, the refs came through in the clutch for you in this game, big time. Unfortunately, as I mentioned for the Lions, those were some really costly penalties, but don't allow the officials to impact the game, as I mentioned before. Let's see. Atlas says, also, really fast, the Lions are a much better team than I gave them credit for at the start of the year. Very impressed. I think that's how most of us feel at this point. If you were late to the Lions bandwagon in terms of giving them the respect that they have essentially commanded out of us, because no one was giving them respect. I'm guilty as charged. Before the season started, I thought this was going to be a 5-11 type team, 6-10, 7-9 at best. But they're playing the type of football that lends you to believe that if they can find a way to win some of these games that they're giving away. And again, that's usually a trademark of a team that's going to end up 8-8, or in the case of the Lions this year, maybe 8-7-1 or 7-8-1. But generally, the teams that find ways to give away games aren't going to look up at the standings at the end of the season and be 10-6. Because of those 2 games you gave away, or the 3 games you gave away, you end up being 7-9 or 8-8. So right now, because of some of the mistakes they've made in some late game situations, they find themselves at 2-2-1 instead of 5-0 or 4-1 at this point of the season. So, unfortunately, they aren't where they probably should be, but they are a much better team than we gave them credit for. And I'm guilty of it just as much as the next man. I thought this wasn't going to be a very good football team, but they've proven all of us wrong. And the defense is really good this year, and they've been able to run the football at times. This has been a really good Lions football team, and unfortunately, some of the mistakes have cost them in some of these ball games. Storm says, as a neutral fan, I can't help but feel disgusted with the officiating. The refs directly cost the Lions this game tonight. Full stop. NFL teams shouldn't have to overcome the refs. Again, I totally get that sentiment, but as I mentioned, the Lions had the opportunity to take this game totally out of anybody's hands but their own. And they failed to do that by leaving points on the field. You kicked 5 field goals, and while you're glad your kicker went 5 of 5, how about he go 3 of 3, and 2 of those field goals were touchdowns? You're talking about a different ball game, one that the Packers aren't even in, to have those officiating calls make a difference at the end of this game. But unfortunately, you leave points on the field. These are the types of things you open yourself up to and make yourself susceptible to. And you're right. Not to take anything away from the Lions, they still did enough to win this football game. And the officials kind of put them in a position that saw it go in the opposite direction. Jude 24 says, how many teams from the NFC North will make the postseason? Right now, it seems like that's a 3-bid league. And when you look at the other divisions, more importantly, when you look at the other divisions, who's going to stop this division from getting 3 teams in? Now, again, still a ton of football to be played. We're only 6 weeks in. So still a ton of football to be played. Some things could change drastically. This Lions team could fall flat on their face. The Bears could turn out to be a dud with Mitchell Trubisky being banged up, and they could end up falling flat on their face this season as well. The Vikings have been up and down. They're starting to find their stride, but what if they don't completely turn it around and find their stride? This could end up being a 1 or 2, big division. But right now it seems like it's 3. But when you look around the rest of the NFC, you got to assume that if San Francisco and Seattle both continue to play the way that they've been playing, that's a 2-bid division. And if that division gets 2, then no other division can get more than 2. So the NFC East is getting 1, and that's the team that wins the division. The NFC South, I'm thinking right now, may only get 1, and that's whoever wins the division, because I don't know if Carolina can keep the pace that they're on right now. I don't know if they can continue to do it. They haven't played great competition. It's going to ratchet up here shortly, and if it ratchets up and it's too much for Kyle Allen to handle, they could end up nosediving at some point this season. But right now, I'm going to go with 2 teams out of this division, because 2 teams are coming out of the West. I feel like San Francisco is good enough to sustain what they've done to start this season off. I don't know if the Rams are going to be a playoff team with the way they're looking, but I know the Seahawks are going to be. And so you see 2 there for sure. If the Rams get their act together, they could easily make it interesting. There's no way that the NFC North, as good as it's been, is getting more than 2 teams, though. I think it's going to be a two-bid league. Niners fan says, do you think 3 teams can make the playoffs from the North? No, I don't. Reese says, more late game heroics from Aaron Rodgers. That's a bad man to the bone. He says, I tried to tell y'all this is a bad man. Y'all already know. I don't have to tell you guys this. You already know what time it is. Reese says, happy holidays. Hey, I can't, man. I cannot with you, man. Happy holidays. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, again, guys, if you want to call in, the number is in the chat discussion. Call in. All right, 848-5642 is the number if you want to call in to the show and voice your opinion on tonight's game. Thomas S. says, do you think there should be reviews on personal fouls, unsportsmanlike conducts, and penalties that within the final 2 minutes of each half? No, I don't. As John Perry said, and he was wrong all night long. All night long. He was wrong all night. He was wrong on the fumble that was initially ruled a catch in a fumble. He said that was good for a catch, and I'm like, John, no, it's not. And he was wrong there. Then he tried to change it after they changed it to an incomplete pass. He's like, yep, this is an incomplete pass. Bro, you just said it was a catch. Stop. Okay, stop. He was wrong on the hands to the face. Initially, he said, yeah, it's a good call. And then he said, well, let's see if, he said, then he tried to change it. Well, it's the neck and the head area. He never touched any part of that man's neck or head. But he did say that, and he was right in saying that, we've seen already how, subjective calls don't usually get changed on the field. And you open up Pandora's box when you start trying to go down that slippery slope of, calls that are judgment calls. You can't review an unsportsmanlike conduct. You can't review personal foul penalties. It's bad enough that these PIs are being reviewed and none of them are being overturned. I just don't think it's a good look. And so, no, I don't think that's something that should happen. But we got a call. Going to go ahead and take it. You're on live with your man, Louie T. Who am I speaking with?
Hey, what's up, Travis, man. I commented earlier.
Hey, what's going on, Travis?
Hey, man. How's it going tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. I was doing better when the when the stream didn't crash on me, but hey, we back up and running, man.
I feel it, man. Yeah, man. Just wanted to. I'm actually a Patriots fan. Like
Okay.
I was watching that game,
Yep.
and I have Galladay on my fantasy team, and I
Woo.
was like, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And like, oh Lord, there were like a lot of things that happened, but Jesus, like, and I agree with you. Lions left a lot of points
Yep.
on the field,
Yep.
et cetera, but Jesus, man, those calls at the end were just heartbreaking,
Yeah.
brutal,
They were
just,
brutal.
but
Brutal.
I do like the Lions to actually come out of that division. I think they were the better team,
Mhm.
and I guess we'll see what happens.
You like them to come out of that division as a wild card or actually win the division?
I actually think so. I think they can win the division. It just really depends on if Stafford can actually play a full season of being like accurate and just clean up on some of the mistakes. I think they have a decent defense.
Mhm.
I think it'll come down honestly between them and the Vikings because I think the Bears are going to melt down because their quarterback situation is garbage.
Okay.
I think Rodgers is super overrated.
Really?
And again, I think he melts in big situations. But I think the Lions are the most talented team. And like I said, I do like them. They look good. I think they had this game won. It's just some of the things didn't fall. But I like them to come out of that division for sure.
Let me ask you this. Be honest with me. Is there any bias towards the Lions because of who their coach is?
Not at all, man. I thought I wasn't a huge Matt Patricia fan, honestly. Like I don't think that he was the reason why the Patriots are winning. I think that he was kind of overrated. It was mainly just Brady being super clutch in a lot of situations.
Okay.
Listen, I actually was a Stafford fan. I think I was pulling for him to like win some of these years, but no, I just look at that division and I'm just like, I like the way the Lions play, and I think that they have the talent to do it.
Okay.
And some of those other teams in there, they just choke so hard. Like I have no faith in Cousins.
Right.
Rodgers, I mean, he's gonna, if things go perfectly, he pulls a LeBron James and gets his coach fired, stuff like that. So I think the Lions can like gel together, and I wouldn't be surprised if they won.
Okay. All right, man. Hey, Thomas, man. Appreciate the call, man. You have a great night.
You too, man.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
All right. So Thomas thinks that still, even though it's rough, that was only the Lions' first divisional game. So they've got a ton of games left within the division to make up some ground. But for that to be your first one and to have it go the way that it did, and now you're 2-1. I think they've dug themselves a early hole with these close losses and some of these games that they could have won, that they should have won, but they didn't. Going to be hard for them to dig themselves out of this hole to come back and win the division, but it's not impossible. I don't see it happening. Unlike Thomas thinks that they can still win this division. I don't think that they're going to win this division, but they do have a chance to win some games and turn things around and actually get back into this thing as a wild card potentially. But I think during the entire Stafford era in Detroit, I don't think they've ever won the division. They haven't won the division, I think, since the early 90s. If I had to take a guess, I'd say somewhere in the 91, 92, 93 range, maybe 94 at the latest. Could be a year they won the division, but I just don't see the Lions winning this division after a 2-1 start. Not with the Packers jumping out to a 5-1 start, and the Vikings looking like they're trying to find their mojo now at 4-2. And don't sleep on the Bears at 3-2 either, even though that loss over in London was a tough one if you're the Chicago Bears. Anyhow, Niners fan says, why can't the officials contact headquarters before making game-changing calls? It would stop the game too much. They already are looking for ways to shorten the game. That's why you're seeing all of these 30-second commercials where they don't actually leave the field. They don't leave the game. It's just quick, and they're back to the field. They're looking for ways to shorten the game. So they don't want anything that's going to lengthen it. And like I said, the officiating, that's the really, after the Lions losing the game the way that they did because of some really critical calls, the next travesty is the fact that this was actually a well-officiated game until those last two calls, and that's all anybody's going to remember. They're not going to remember that the officials were letting the Packers and Lions play. They weren't throwing a flag for everything. There have been so many games this year that have been contaminated with over 20 flags being thrown, combined between the two teams participating in the game, and where the officials just took over the game. That's not what tonight was, unfortunately, because of the way it ended. That's all anyone's going to remember. But this was actually a well-officiated game up until those two calls. Anyhow, Reed says, Green Bay keeps finding ways to win by hook or by crook. When the triple O's hit, it's a W on the box score. Have to respect that. Hey, it's not always pretty with the Packers, but they're 5-1, man. You say what you want. And I had a Packers fan tell me last week that it just something was missing with this team. And while that may actually be the case, they're winning ball games. They're finding ways to win, and you got to give them credit for that. Let's see. Atlas says, you thought I was going ballistic on the Rams, Lou, but I was ahead of the curve. McVay and Goff are way overrated. I can't argue with what you said, because remember, we had this discussion a couple of weeks ago. Matter of fact, it was the Sunday night game when, it was the Thursday night game, as a matter of fact, when they when the Seahawks beat the Rams on the missed field goal, and you came on and you doubled down on McVay and Goff. This is the first game that I've ever watched, and I watched that entire game versus the 49ers. It's the first game I've ever watched that I thought Sean McVay didn't have a great day coaching and had a poor day calling plays. There were so many opportunities in this game for them to win. I honestly thought that, that fourth down stop, I thought that was a touchdown, but that's not here nor there. The calling on those two successive plays were just horrible. I don't want to get into that, but you, my friend, I would say you were right, but you stuck to your guns, and they're starting to prove you right. I still am in the camp that those two are going to be just fine, and I definitely believe in Sean McVay. Now, Goff, on the other hand, we'll see about him, but I definitely believe in Sean McVay. You know, Jared Goff still does have to prove himself in this league, but he's been a really good football player to this point. Reese says, can you give me some reassurance, Lou? Is BA still the right guy? Sure he is. I mean, if you were expecting him to come in and work a miracle with that Buccaneers roster the way that it was set up, with a young secondary and a defense that's pretty much in turmoil right now, and an offense that is led by Jameis Winston, you were being very wishful at that point. I mean, the fact that right now you're 2-4, you could be 0-6 right now. I mean, let's be honest here. You went and scored 50 some odd points on the road versus the Rams. Maybe you exposed them because they haven't won a game since. And you beat the Panthers in a game in which Cam Newton probably shouldn't have even been on the field. So, honestly, you could be 0-6 right now. You're 4, and you could have been 3-3. You should have beat the Giants. You know, and if you're sitting here at 3-3, after everything that has happened, you would have taken it. So, I think BA is doing a quality job out there, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And so it takes time in this league. You know, it takes time. Reese says, everyone talks about San Fran not playing anybody. You don't go 5-0 on accident. Facts. Buren Charlie says, some fouls aren't all that subjective. The reviews are for blatant fouls. Ref's job is to call the game correctly. Sad that people don't want the correct calls in football. So here's the thing, is the human error element is going to exist in sports. This is the thing. I don't understand why people want everything to be legislated in the game. It's bad enough that hits are already being legislated out of the game. You want the game to be perfect. None of these sports are made to be perfect. Basketball isn't supposed to be a perfect sport. I hate the fact that there's instant replay in the NBA. Now we're literally looking at the ball go off of somebody's finger, and if it barely scrapes it, it's off. That's not what these rules were put in to be officiated to be. All right. I don't want to go to the monitor for every single thing. All right. There are certain calls that aren't black and white, like hands to the face. Either the hand went to the face or it didn't. But I don't want to go to the monitor for that. All right. But again, we're looking. Mistakes happen. And yes, it'd be nice to get the calls right on the field. These officials are human. But at the end of the day, we don't want the game stopped for every single thing that's penalized. I just don't think how I feel. You may feel differently, and that's fine. And if they were to make those changes, guess what? We'd have to live with them. I didn't want them to be reviewing pass interference. It's been a horrible trial this year. I mean, literally, I think I saw a stat yesterday, 54 challenges of pass interference, only 7 have been overturned. I mean, what the hell is the rule in place for then? So I'm a purist, and I'm not afraid to admit that. Mistakes happen. All right, deal with it. That's how it's always been, and I'm not saying that's right. I just don't want to see the alternative, which is let's stop the game for every single flag and make sure it's really a flag. That's not how this game is supposed to be officiated. That's not how it was set up. You know, I'm all for the improvement of the game and the betterment of the game and making it more efficient. Stopping the game after every flag that you don't think is a flag isn't more efficient football. It isn't what this game was intended to be. So I disagree with that. Niners fan says, damn, Lou, the NFC is extremely competitive. Lions, Packers, Vikings, Niners, Seahawks, Rams, Panthers, Saints, Eagles, Cowboys are all contenders to make the playoffs. But again, that's what we thought going into the season, that the AFC was going to be weak and the NFC was going to be a really strong conference. It's turning out that way. Is anybody surprised? No, you shouldn't be, because that's what we all thought, or at least that's what I thought. I can't speak for anybody else, but I think most of you felt like the NFC was the stronger of the two conferences. C's Up says, what part of VA are you from? Originally born and raised in Norfolk, but I currently reside in Hampton. Niners fan says, looking at our schedule, think we could legitimately go 12-4. We'll see about that. Storm says, do you agree with Pat McAfee that Alberto Riveron needs to be fired? I've never been an Alberto Riveron fan. This goes back to when he was an official. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, man. I mean, Mike Pereira was once the head of officiating. I love Mike Pereira, but it's a tough job. I think Alberto Riveron isn't great at his job. And you could argue that they could use a different set of eyes in New York in headquarters. But, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not a big Alberto Riveron fan. I'm usually not in favor of getting guys fired. But I don't think he's great at his job. So if that's what constitutes him, being fired or whatnot, then, yeah, there probably needs to be someone else in his job. C's Up says, or Atlanta fan 21 says, you think the refs are just trying to get back on the teams for the rule change, especially the PI reviews? Yeah, this is the thing. The league has made it abundantly clear. They're trying to deter teams from challenging these plays because, I mean, some of these plays you can clearly see it's pass interference, and they just refuse to make the switch. And what they're essentially saying is if it's, and you keep hearing the word clear and obvious or egregious, they're not overturning these calls. So they're trying to send a message to these teams. Don't challenge. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your time out. Don't waste your challenge. You're not going to win. So unless the receiver is literally being tackled as the ball is arriving, don't challenge the play. You're not going to win. So they're trying to deter teams from challenging. It's not working, but that's what they're trying to do. C's Up says, are the Packers the best team in the NFC? If not, what's your ranking? I don't think they're the best team right now. I think the best team is the Seattle Seahawks. 49ers are right there. I still question the 49ers offense. They've got a long way to go. I want to see what happens when they can't run it and Jimmy G has to throw it, because I'm not confident in his ability right now to be the team throwing the football. But they run it so well. They play such good defense. To me, it's the 49ers, the Seahawks, the Packers. I don't think the Packers, they've got their own set of flaws. To me, Seattle and San Francisco are right now, and the Saints. Let me stop myself before I omit the Saints. To me, the Saints and the Seahawks and the 49ers, to me, are in a class slightly above the Packers. And then I think there's a class below the Packers of, the rest of the teams, the Vikings, the Panthers, the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Bears, all those teams that are vying for a playoff spot. But to me, it's Saints, it's San Fran, and Seattle. And then it's a number of other teams. Reese says, the reason the NFL became popular was because of its imperfections. It's a rugged, violent game. It was never meant to be so micromanaged. My point exactly. And not to be an old curmudgeon, get off my lawn. But it's not supposed to be micromanaged. I think that's essentially what I was trying to say. I think Reed summed it up perfectly and a lot more eloquently than I did. But this game wasn't meant to be one where you're literally looking at every single play, trying to determine, if the officials got it right or not. And certain calls deserve to be challengeable and others don't. And I don't think you need to be micromanaging every portion of this game. I agree with that, Reed. McLaurin was definitely a steal for us. Atlanta Fan 21 says, I feel personally like most of the NFC are pretender teams. What do you think? All of them have at least one glaring hole. The best teams, which pains me to say, might be the Saints. I agree with you that the Saints are up there, Seahawks are up there, and I think the 49ers, even though they have some glaring weaknesses of their own, their defense is so good. I think they're another team to be reckoned with as well. But, I don't think there's any team in the league right now that doesn't have a weakness. Even the New England Patriots have their own set of weaknesses. I think every team is flawed. And that's why this season it's so interesting, because I don't see a dominant team in this league right now, period. Either conference. The Chiefs are struggling. The Patriots, I think, have played a very soft schedule, and I haven't been overly impressed in their victories over some of these porous teams. I think that in the NFC, every team, as you mentioned, have glaring weaknesses. I think this thing is really wide open this year. I really do. Let's see. Atlas says, the whole PR review debacle really shows to me how officiating is motivated. I really do smell some kind of agenda at play, because the calls are just wrong unless they're blind. Again, they never wanted to change that rule. They did it to appease the Saints because it was such an egregious miss. It cost the Saints. There were lawsuits and all kinds of nonsense going on. Just to put all of that to rest, they went ahead and made a rule change. I think they're going to get rid of this rule change. It's on a one-year trial basis. I think they're going to get rid of it at season's end, but we'll see what happens. The 20th Mike says, he was a bad man tonight. Yes, Aaron Rodgers was. And Niners fan says, can the Redskins snag the number one pick? I don't think they will. And C's Up says, what's the beef between you and Ed Oliver? I don't have any beef with him. I think this is a conjured up beef by the viewers. They're either on one side or the other, and I don't really understand that. I really don't. We're both Redskin fans. That's always been my thing, is we're all here for the same purpose. We may not share the same views on how to get there, and we may not have the same way to go about things, but at the end of the day, we're all Redskins fans, so it really doesn't make that big of a difference to me. But Aaron Rodgers was a bad man tonight. And I talked about him throwing to these guys. He had dropped passes. He had guys out there that honestly made his job a lot tougher tonight. And he still found a way to put them in a position to win, which was amazing. But that's why he is who he is. And, the caller earlier said he thought that Aaron Rodgers was overrated. I beg to differ. I've seen this man come up big in some really clutch spots. I've also seen him fail, but that you can say that about anybody. Brady hasn't come through in every single situation he's ever been in. He's came through in most of them, okay. But I can recall some situations where he didn't come up clutch for his team, and so Rodgers is the man, and he's always been that for me, and he showed it again tonight. They had no business winning this game, and yes, you can credit the officials with the assist, but he also made some plays to put his team in a position. He still had to make plays to get them in the position. Remember, keep this in mind. They were still going to attempt a field goal, albeit a long one. They were going to attempt a field goal to take the lead regardless of the second hands to the face. It was the first one that I had a problem with. That was the one that I said, man, that one stings, because the Lions had complete control of the game until that first hands to the face penalty. So, for what it's worth, it is what it is. Bottom line is, I thank you guys for joining me. Sorry for the technical difficulties that landed us on this live stream here on the mobile device, but we got it done. So did the Green Bay Packers tonight, who come out victorious in this football game despite the way that it unfolded. They get away with a 23-22 victory over the Detroit Lions, and the Lions have no one to blame for this loss but themselves. You can blame the officials if you want, but you missed a lot of opportunities. You left a lot of points on the field, and you allowed the officiating to become an issue here instead of taking matters into your own hands and going out and taking this football game from the Packers. You left it to chance, and you left it in the balance, and the Packers, along with the officiating, ended up allowing the Green Bay Packers to steal this game and win 23-22 on a walk-off Mason Crosby field goal. For as good as Matt Prater was, Mason Crosby was equally as good for the Green Bay Packers in this game as they get the win, go to 5-1 on the season, stay atop the NFC North that is just crowded with good football teams. No one in that division is under 500. Meanwhile, for the Lions and the Packers, more importantly, improved to 3-0 in that division, which gives them the leg up on the competition. So they've already done damage and work in that division. 3 out of their 5 wins have come inside the division. So that's a path to success in a really good road that they're paving for themselves in the NFC North. Meanwhile, the Lions dropped their first contest in the NFC North in heartbreaking fashion. I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage it could be. Until next time, you guys have a good one. Take care. Thanks for joining me. Have a good one.